Yo, five that diesel. Let's show them how we do it out here.
What's going on, CK Nation? This is the boss man CK, and we're on full throttle. And on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about two of the most legendary NASCAR movies as we put them up the head. One of them gave us an emotional drama, real danger, iconic cinematography, and Tom Cruise driving like his life depended on it. The other gave us a grown man saying, if you ain't first, you're last. Now listen, I love Talladega Nights, and I quote it constantly. Most people quote it constantly. Half of America still says shake and bake for absolutely no reason. Or if you're my wife, you tell me I might be 10 years old, but I'll beat your ass. Those quotes like that and plenty more make Talladega Nights very, very interesting. So we're going to discuss that and put them up head to head and say who was better, Days of Thunder or Talladega Nights. All on this episode of the CK Motorsports Full Throttle. So let's get it, and let's put the pedal to the floor. Alright, CK Nation. Again, like I said, I'm going to just defend a position that might sound controversial to racing fans, comedy fans, and basically anybody who owns a shake and bake t-shirt or loves the saying, rubbing is racing. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I heard a controversial statement that I thought was very controversy, or to me it was, with when Dave Booty said on his Sirius Satellite Speedway show this week to a caller that he thought rubbing and racing was the stupidest line from a horrible movie. So I wanted to come on here and address and talk about the comparisons of both Talladega Nights and Days of Thunder. All NASCAR fans love both movies. I love both movies. So I would love to go and see what we can and bring up some good valid points to you guys on what I think, how they both rate up against each other. Days of Thunder, in my opinion, is probably a better movie than Talladega Nights. Now, before anyone gets offended, let me make something very clear right away. I'm not saying Talladega Nights was horrible. Not at all. It has memorable lines. In fact, it's probably one of the funniest sports comedies ever made. Will Ferrell is just hilarious in his own right. John C. Reilly is hilarious as well. And the one-liners that they had in the movies were legendary. And honestly, half the movie sounds like somebody turned NASCAR tailgate into a screenplay. I mean, if you look at it now, he's not, but some people may compare Cletus McFarland to being the modern day Ricky Bobby with some of the lines that he's popped up on us in interviews in ARCA. But being funny is not the same thing as being better, in my opinion. When we talk about which movie is actually stronger overall, storytelling, emotional stakes, character growth, racing scenes, cinematography, performances, and long-term impacts, Days of Thunder wins outright. And it's not even close to me. I mean, today, so like I said, I'm going to break all this down from Days of Thunder. Like, number one, Days of Thunder treats racing like it matters. 2, it has real emotional stakes. 3, the characters actually grow, and the racing scenes are vastly superior, and the performances are grounded and believable. By the end of this, I think you'll all understand and still maybe have your own opinions, but understand where my opinion is too of why Days of Thunder deserves a lot more respect than some people give it. The first reason Days of Thunder is better is simple. It understands that racing itself is dramatic, from two-tire situations to running to outside to having a rough day and trying to get through it. You don't need the parody NASCAR to make it interesting. In Days of Thunder, racing is presented almost like combat. The drivers are obsessed, the crashes are terrifying, and the speeds feel dangerous. The pit crews operate under pressure, and every second matters. Again, with 2 tires, pit strategies, everything matters. When Cole Trickle gets into a car, the movie makes you feel like the man is risking his life every single lap. That gives the story weight. Meanwhile, on the other side, with Talladega Nights, it's mostly using racing as a setup for jokes. Again, funny jokes are legendary. They are. There's no way around it. They always are going to be legendary. But the races themselves in Talladega Nights really don't feel as important or most impactful as what you get from Days of Thunder. When you're not watching because you're mostly invested in who wins, you're watching to see what ridiculous thing Ricky Bobby's going to do or Ricky Bobby's going to say next. In Days of Thunder, the races are a real story. Tony Scott shoots NASCAR like a battlefield. And if you're wondering who that was, that's the director and guy for Days of Thunder. The camera shakes, the engine screams, the editing feels intense, the crashes look violent, and the pit stops feel urgent. Even people who don't care about NASCAR can watch the movie and suddenly understand why somebody would dedicate their entire life to putting it on the line each lap for this sport. That's good filmmaking to me, in my opinion. Sport movies work best when they can convince the audience that the competition matters deeply to the characters. You think about other sports emotional movies that could get you into that, like Days of Thunder has, and the serious effect is you look at everybody's American favorite great boxer in the movie world. I can't say of all time, but boxer in the movie world, Rocky Balboa. Or you think about Top Gun, Tom Cruise flying the F-16s like there's no tomorrow. Matter of fact, if you think about it, Top Gun has that emotional effect too, because look, NASCAR put on a parody to that to promote the race at the naval base in San Diego this upcoming year. So, I mean, the audience doesn't need to personally box or fly fighter jets or even race stock cars. They just need to believe who the characters are and that they care. In Days of Thunder, you absolutely get that. Now, I think another reason why in my book Days of Thunder wins is because the movie actually has emotional weight. Cole Trickle just isn't a joke machine. He's talented, arrogant, immature, and obsessed with winning. He wants to make it. Kind of reminds us of a Tim Richmond, or kind of reminds us of a Dale Earnhardt or a Jeff Bodine, somebody, or Jeff Gordon. But underneath all that confidence is somebody terrified of failure. That creates real tension. When Cole crashes, it matters. When he gets injured, it matters. When he loses confidence, it matters. The audience feels danger. Like, what's going to happen now? There's real character conflict with Days of Thunder. One of the strongest moments in the movie is after the major crash when Cole struggles psychologically to get back in the car. And he's also trying to convince Rowdy Burns to step out of the car because Rowdy Burns has head issues, concussion issues, his brain swelling. And they're telling him don't get back in the car because he has to have health surgery and stuff. When you look at Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby also loses constant confidence, but the movie instantly turns it into absurd comedy. Everybody can't forget when the man thinks he's on fire and he's riding around in his whitey tidies, as some people will call them, or his Fruit of the Looms. Then he turns around and stabs himself with a knife to prove that he's back. But emotionally, the movie never seems to stay serious long enough for the audience to truly feel what Ricky Bobby is going through. The core difference between the two movies is Days of Thunder wants you emotionally invested. Talladega Nights wants you laughing every 30 seconds. And because of that, Days of Thunder leaves a stronger impact. The victories feel earned, and when Cole finally regains his confidence and returns to racing, it feels satisfied because we watch him struggle. In Talladega Nights, the emotional journey is intentionally ridiculous. That's part of comedy, though. The comedy ages differently. Some jokes remain timeless, some jokes don't. Obviously, his quotes, if you ain't first, you're last, shake and bake, they're going to last forever. Everybody's going to talk about them from years down the line, from generation to generation. When you say Ricky Bobby, it's, oh, shake and bake. I mean, look at Cletus McFarland and Squirrel McNutt. They were on there in Arca talking about shaking and baking. So, I mean, let me put it this way. I'm not saying that Talladega Nights was a horrible movie. I loved it. I got it in my DVD collection. I mean, DVDs ain't really a thing anymore, but I have it. Days of Thunder is just one of them good movies, and I feel like we had to come on here and talk about this because, again, I believe there are people out there like Dave Moody who thought Days of Thunder was stupid, who thought it was a horrible movie. And yes, I've never been in a race car before. Never have. Have I wanted to? Yes, but never have been in one. But I've been in iRacing. But the thing of the matter is when you look at what Days of Thunder was compared to other movies, I don't know how you could say it was a horrible movie when it was pretty spot on to what racing was back in the 90s. That's the question I would ask to you, Dave Moody, as well, is when you compare this, you say rubbing is racing is nowhere true at all in the sport. What time frame are you talking about here? What time frame are you issuing? Are you talking about it that it wasn't that reliable, or not reliable, but was not believable in the 90s when this movie was made? Or are you talking about it's not believable or it's not a factor now with racing how it is now? That's the question I would ask you, Dave. And then that's also a question I would ask TK Nation, and you guys can comment on that when you see this. What do you think? Rubbing is racing, is that quote viable to today now in the sport now, or was it more viable back then in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s? What do you think? Like I said, in Talladega Nights, the emotional journey is intentionally ridiculous. That's part of the comedy, but comedy aged differently. Meanwhile, genuine human conflict tends to last forever. Fear, ego, competition, and redemption. Those themes always work, and that's why Days of Thunder still feels emotionally powerful decades later. Now, let's talk about character development. This is where Days of Thunder completely separates itself and has an argument in my point of being one of the best NASCAR movies made ever. Cole Trickle changes throughout the movie. You may not see it, but he does. At the beginning, he's reckless. He believes raw talent alone makes him unbeatable. He doesn't trust his crew. He doesn't trust Harry. He doesn't understand teamwork. He just drives it like it's an open wheel. But over time, he learns that humility, that it matters. Great sports stories aren't just about winning, they're about growth. And Harry Hodge, played by a brilliantly late, great Robert Duvall, becomes the mentor figure that teaches Cole discipline, maturity, and patience. Classic scene in that movie is when he tells Cole, I'll give you 50 laps on these tires. Run it any way you want. Come back in, we'll change them. And then you run 50 laps on the second tires the way I want you to, and I bet you I'll beat you every time. And Cole learns. Learns how to save the tires. Learns how to save the grip. Learns how fast is loose, or loose is fast, but on the edge. So, I mean, you learn. A lot of drivers still, when you listen to in-car radios from them, a lot of them still talk about that today. How the car is loose, how it's handling, what adjustments they need, what do they need to get to victory lane. And then not only that, the relationship between Harry and Cole feels authentic. You can believe these two men gradually learn to trust each other. Even Rowdy Barnes involves himself. He comes from hating and not liking Cole to wanting Cole to drive his car for him. So, I mean, we learn things there. At first, Rowdy Burns is a rival. Then after the crash, like I said, the relationship becomes more mutual. There's a mutual understanding and respect there. The Days of Thunder characters feel like actual people. Now, compare that to Talladega Nights. Most characters stay exaggerated in characters from beginning to end. Again, intentionally. But there's only so emotionally invested you can get in people who basically walking away with punchlines. Ricky Bobby starts ridiculous and he ends ridiculous. Kyle Naughton Jr. is hilarious, but he essentially is the same character the whole movie. John Gerard is memorable because he's absurd, not because he's layered. Talladega Nights works as a satire, but satire really rarely creates the same emotional connection as sincere storytelling. That sincerely gives Days of Thunder more staying power. Also, this might be the biggest point of all. The racing scenes in Days of Thunder are vastly superior, not slightly better, not debatably better, vastly better. Tony Scott, the director, films racing with intensity that still holds up today. And there's talk that after they would film at Phoenix on some of the race scenes, Hendrick would actually still field that city number 46 Chevy City Chevrolet or that number 51 Mellow Yellow and actually race with the Cup guys. Yes, Tom Cruise wasn't in the car, but they still ran it. The camera angles make you feel trapped inside the car. The editing creates chaos without becoming confusing. The sound design is incredible. You feel the engines, you feel the speed, you feel the danger. The Daytona scenes still look fantastic. Even today, in 2026, when you watch that movie, when it was made back in the 90s, you still feel like you're at the old school Daytona when you see it. You still get them vibes when you go in Hendrick Motorsports and you see that 46 Chevrolet in the Hendrick Motorsports Museum. You still get them vibes of Cole Trickle doing his thing in that car. The movie came out in 1990. They didn't have modern CGI shortcuts. A lot of those sequences relied on practical filmmaking. That gives the crashes and races more physical weight. Meanwhile, Talladega Nights intentionally exaggerates everything. Cars flip in its lead. The races become cartoonish. The tone is comedic chaos. That works for laughs. Because let's be real. Other than when Carl Edwards did it that one time, which I think it was just the way of saying I'm finishing the race, plus kind of paying homage to Talladega Nights. How many times have you ever seen the driver get out the car after he's wrecked it and run to the finish line? Or how many times have you ever seen a race that's still going on when there's only 2 cars left on the track? When Cole Trickle and Rowdy Burns crash, it feels horrifying. When Ricky Bobby crashes, it feels like part of a sketch comedy routine. And yes, that's intentional, but intentional comedy still doesn't automatically make something better. A movie can be funny and still lack tension. Days of Thunder combines excitement and tension. The combination is hard to pull off. Also, the soundtrack matters. I think when it comes down to it overall, that yes, let's be fair and let me address the biggest counter arguments. First, yes, Talladega Nights is funnier. It was designed to be funnier than Days of Thunder. Absolutely no debate there. If your goal is pure comedy, then Talladega will win easily with that. But funny doesn't automatically equal the best. Otherwise, every great movie list would just be comedies. Second, Days of Thunder is basically NASCAR's Top Gun version. And that's a compliment, because Top Gun understood how to combine spectacle, competition, charisma, and emotional stakes. Third, Talladega Nights can be what people can consider internationally stupid. And yes, internationally stupid can still be entertaining. But entertainment alone doesn't automatically create a stronger film. A movie can succeed as comedy while still being less layered, less emotional, less cinematic. So, with that being said, I know probably CK Nation, you're thinking, oh man, the boss man CK, he's biased towards Days of Thunder. Well, when it comes to statements of Days of Thunder was a horrible movie and probably one of the most horrible movie in NASCAR, yes, I will be biased on it because I did love Talladega Nights. But at the end of the day, if I'm choosing which one to pop in to watch, I'm going for Days of Thunder. Because it does more. Days of Thunder creates tension, it builds emotional stakes, and it develops characters and captures the danger and intensity of racing, and it respects the audience. It respects us for what we want. It treats competition like something meaningful. Talladega Nights is hilarious. Like I said, it's hilarious. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, I get hit with one-liners. I got hit with one-liner the other night by my wife that she pops on me. I'm 10 years old, but I'll beat your ass. Or like she says all the time, I'm jacked up on Mountain Dew. The one-liners like that make Talladega Nights a great movie and rememberable. But Days of Thunder is a genuine sports drama that happens to be entertaining as hell. One movie can make you laugh while the other makes you feel the speed, the pressure, the fear, and the obsession of competition. And when you compare those two experiences side by side, Days of Thunder crosses the line first in my book. So, CK Nation, I hope you agree. Please, like I said, comment in the comment box. Let me know your opinions. Let me know what y'all think. I hope Dave Moody watches this. And I hope you reconsider your statement. You probably won't, but I hope maybe you reconsider this and understand. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me on this episode, CK Nation. And like I said before, we're all gas, no brakes. Let's hit the pedal to the floor. And I'll see you guys next week. And also, please, again, like, subscribe on my YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and TikTok. And I'll see you guys again for another episode of the CK Motorsports Full Throttle.